Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on what time zone you are in. I'm so happy to have you here today. I have with me John Cruz, who is going to be our presenter today, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell you a little bit about him here in a minute. But our topic today is all around sloped piping. So if you are one of our Sparkies and are more focused on electrical, I don't want to waste your time. I want to make sure that you're here for the right content. And so, definitely let's make sure that you get into the right ones. What we do with the Building Engineer Meetup is we rotate between topics for MEP engineering. So we rotate between, actually all building engineering. So we rotate between mechanical engineering topics like today's topic, which is our sloped piping. And we also talk about electrical engineering and our structural engineering. So we'll rotate between those each month. And so each month it would be for a different specific type of engineering. Just letting you know that, again, so that I don't waste your time and we make sure you're in the right place. So while we are waiting, we've had over 1,000 people register for today, and I want to make sure I give everyone time to get logged in. While we're waiting, why don't we go ahead and have you type in where you're joining from in the world so that we can get to know a little bit more of you. So in the question panel, pop that open and start telling me where you're from. So I see Mark is from Du Bois, and David, Ohio, Justin from Kansas. Oh, it's moving quickly. We have a lot of people joining right at the last minute, so that's amazing. I love it. I have Jill from, no, actually, it's moving so fast, I'm gonna have to hold my bar so it doesn't keep moving on me. Let's see. Brian from Wisconsin, David from Clearwater, David from Winnipeg. We've got a lot of Davids in here. Kevin from Rochester, New York. We have Ontario, Canada, Colorado, Riverside, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Cincinnati, Ohio, Atlanta, Georgia. Apologize, I'm kind of going through it so quick. Just to let everyone know kind of where we have everyone coming in from. We have Bathurst in Canada and Baltimore, Kansas, Raleigh, North Carolina, Lafayette, Virginia, Belgium, excellent, I love it. Alberta, Canada, Assam from Irvine, California. All right, I see the numbers are starting to steady off a little bit, but go ahead and keep telling us where you're coming in from. I love to see where everyone's coming in from, and I love to see those of you that keep returning for these meetups. Hopefully you find as much value in them as we do. It's definitely, a lot of education in a short amount of time. And at the end of this, for those of you that attend the whole thing, you'll have an opportunity to send in a second survey to be able to download a certificate of completion. So basically, we recognize since a lot of you are working remotely because of COVID, you can't get in and get your lunch and learns done to keep your professional education units going. And so we're going to be providing a certificate of completion at the end of this. But to get that, you have to fill out that second survey. And so I'll be sending a link out later on, probably with the recording. So just a heads up. All right, John, if you go to the next slide, we'll go ahead and jump right in while everyone finishes up logging in and getting their audio working. Just a little bit on our safe harbor statement. I don't expect John to really talk too much about future features, but just in case anything comes up, just know that anything that we talk about that might be a future feature of the software is just that, things that we're working on. Please don't use those statements as a reason to buy. We really want you to use the software that you already own and take advantage of it to its maximum capacity. So that's why we hold these meetups. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is a meetup. What does that mean? I really want to provide interaction, and that's why I have you start off by putting something in the question panel. I want you to get used to using that so that you can ask questions as we go and make it a little bit more interactive. Our lines, however, are muted just so that we have a nice clean recording at the end, and you'll get a copy of that recording in case you want to rewatch it because you found it very valuable, or maybe you want to share it with a coworker or a friend or something. But if you do have questions, again, put them in the question panel, or you can always raise your hand in that attendee panel, and during the Q&A section, I will make sure that I unmute your line so that you can ask your question live. I know not everyone is brave enough to do that, so that's why we have both options. Raise your hand in the attendee panel and put that question in the Q&A panel. Next slide. Okay, so again, this is a meetup. We have several different meetups according to what you do. So if you are more on the architectural side, we do have our fourth Tuesday of the month is our architectural meetup. Again, our building engineer includes our mechanical, electrical, and structural engineers for the building industry. Those two middle ones there, the electrical engineer and the mechanical engineer, those are more for the manufacturing side of the house. So depends on what you have going on, what your specialty is. We try to make sure we have a meetup for everyone. So let's go to the next page, or slide, I mean. For those of you that have thought about presenting at AU, I just want to let you know the deadline has now passed, but I have an opportunity for you. So let's go to the next slide. One more, there we go. Okay. We will be holding building engineering meetups at AU. Now that it's gone all digital, we want to mix things up a little bit. So it's a little bit different than our regular monthly meetups. And what we're planning is to do some lightning rounds. What does that mean? Well, we're inviting you, our customers, to come in and present a 5-minute workflow of something that has helped you or your firm be more efficient, save time, save money. Maybe it's a best practice that you use at your firm, or maybe some tips and tricks. So there's a lot of different ways you can spin that. But I would love to invite you to present. And what you'll do, if you are interested, go ahead and send me directly an email. So it's michelle.rasmussen@autodesk.com with a subject line of Building Engineering Meetup at AU. And tell me what your topic is. What we'll do in August is we will vote on which topics everyone is interested in. And the 4 with the highest votes will be invited to speak at AU, and we'll go ahead and hold some practices in both September and October. If it's your first time speaking, don't worry about it. I have mentored a number of AU speakers, and they quickly became #1 speakers, or some of our highest rated speakers at AU. So I'm there to coach you, help you along, and make sure that you can present a wonderful topic for everyone at the meetup during AU. So again, send me those emails. And with that, I am going to let John introduce himself and turn it over to John. The floor is yours.
Great. Can you hear me, Michelle?
I can. It looks great.
Okay, great. Just wanted to do a quick check. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is John Cruz. I'm a Senior Designated Support Specialist here at Autodesk. I work exclusively with our enterprise customers. I've been with Autodesk since 2014, so going on a little over, about 6 years now. I'm currently based out of the Plano, Texas office, but due to circumstances that we're all aware of, I've been moved into the home office environment. So apologies up front if you hear a random dog bark in the background. I apologize for that up front. So some of my past roles over the last 18 plus years have been roles within and as a BIM and VDC manager, MEP designer, and then CAD manager in support of large construction firms, subcontractors, and engineering design firms. So that's a little bit about me. Once again, I think I'm fighting the slide deck, so hopefully we won't jump around too much as we move forward. So hopefully many of you have already viewed the Connected Learning course that was available for this topic. So today, to start off for the first few minutes, I'm going to recap that course. Of course, if you've not watched it, please refer back to that link below that you see. That's at customersuccess.autodesk.com, and go back and view that. Just keep in mind, this is a wonderful resource provided by Autodesk. The Connected Learning allows Autodesk product users to really sharpen their skills through the use of just 15 or 20-minute courses. And there's a lot of topics available, just a wonderful resource that I think we've put out for our customers. So this month in the building engineering community meetup, we'll be focusing on the following topics. So slope piping. We'll also be talking about modifying the direction of that slope piping, and then connect pipes into that slope piping. And then at the end, we'll kind of discuss some of the things that I've seen that help with slope piping, and then hopefully open up the discussion with everybody that's on to, just lend us your ear and give us an idea of what you've seen work, or something that you feel is something that the community would be able to develop some successes on. So as we look at the following slides, keep in mind that we're utilizing Revit 2020.1, and I'm also utilizing the small data set that's provided in the training as well for the purpose of this presentation. So to recap, in the first tutorial, we looked at initially modeling slope piping within a sanitary plan. And we also incorporated the use of a section and modified that view range to kind of help visualize the slope of that pipe that was created. So in order to do this, to begin, obviously in the System tab, we're going to select the pipe. And then, of course, this does take us to the Modified Place Pipe panel. Obviously, you're going to select your slope direction, whether it's up or down, or if you decide to exclude the slope altogether. And then you can also select your slope value. For instance, this case is 1/8 inch to 1 foot. But keep in mind that you have the ability to go into your mechanical settings within Revit and modify that value. They can be added or deleted and modified. And this is found under your mechanical settings, going down into pipe settings, and then going down to slopes. And then obviously we're going into the options bar, which you can select your pipe diameter and your elevation inputs. Most of this stuff, as regular Revit users, this is not something that's not unfamiliar to you in drawing. And then, of course, finally selecting your pipe to draw, and then populate any info within your properties dialog box, reference level, elevation, and so forth. So as we indicated earlier, we incorporated the use of a section box. There may be instances where piping is drawn and not visible from the plan view. That view range may need to be modified. So within a plan view, obviously we'd select the view range from the properties dialog box. And this would take you to the view range dialog box where you can manipulate the primary ranges and the view depths. Be sure to utilize that hide show button as a visualization aid, because it really helps to make your selections. Some people are visual learners, so they need to see where these actual ranges are relevant in terms to the model. So very, very useful tool to utilize. And then, of course, once you know the depth of your lowest pipe, you can always come back and adjust the view range to reflect that depth, to kind of clean up your model and clean up your drawings in plan view, etc. And then the last thing to keep in mind, these slope values, they can be copied from one project to another, utilizing transfer project standards within the Revit application. So as we moved and looked at the next tutorial, we looked at modifying the slope of piping through the use of the slope editor. So if we look here, we're viewing a section view of a pipe to kind of better visualize the slope. And I can't stress enough, be sure to utilize tile views when necessary. Obviously, try to get a 3D view, a plan view, a section view, and any elevations that may help, and just put it all on that screen if possible, so you can really visualize how you're routing this pipe. So currently this run of pipe does not have a slope associated with it. You'll see there's no slope value in the middle of that pipe where the arrow is showing. And always be sure, before changing the slope, be sure to select the entire run of your piping that you're working with. Don't just select the simple pieces. You'll hover over that selected piping tab so you can grab that entire run and then click to select. So if we look at the modified select tab, obviously we're going to select slope, and this will bring in that slope editor where you can modify that slope value and the slope control point. And here we're looking at plan view. You can see the arrow on one point of the pipe run on the lower right-hand corner of that image. This indicates the direction of the positive rise within that pipe. If you select a slope control point, the arrow will move to the other end of that pipe run, so it allows you to change the direction of the positive rise within that run. If you do have a run that ends on a stack riser, the slope editor will behave just slightly different. When that pipe is dragged to connect to that stack, the slope values are available, but the slope control point is no longer available within that dialog box. And that is because slope piping always runs down. So if it's connected to a stack, it's obviously the default. And then, of course, additionally, there's some pipe controls when you're looking at the pipe. Here we see a section view, and the end pipe controls can be modified by double-clicking on those values. And then, of course, as we talked about earlier, that slope can be changed here by double-clicking that slope value as well. And it appears that I've hung up just a bit here. Okay, there we go. So finally, we looked at best practices for connecting fixtures and other pipes to slope piping. The tutorial covered a few techniques that was utilized to accomplish this, such as modifying the lengths of pipes, adding a pipe fitting, and then copying a group of piping, and then aligning them correctly to other fixtures or other like fixtures within a model. So in this particular example from the tutorial, we have slope sanitary running and going out of the building. So in section view, we selected the down pipe associated with the sinks, and then we drug that pipe down to intersect with the horizontal run, so essentially the midline of the pipe. Now that intersection will automatically clean up to the connection, but keep in mind this applies the correct fitting based off of your routing preferences. So make sure you go into your routing preferences within Revit and assign those correctly, or else you will get null values. Now, in some instances, when attempting the workflow, you will get an error, and it depends on how the piping has been routed, depending on what kind of direction you're coming from. And when you do this error does occur, you may have to place your runs by placing a fitting first and then routing. So if we're looking at here in plan view, a 45-degree Y was placed on the horizontal run of this pipe. And then, of course, they went into the Systems tab, and what you're going to do is select a reference plane. And then what you can do is set that reference plane based off of the endpoint of that connected pipe. And for this particular case, we drew a 45-degree line for the reference plane to match what the degree dimension was for that Y. And then lastly, all we're doing is we're sliding that Y to match the alignment of that reference plane. So definitely use reference planes to assist in the routing whenever possible. From there, we're drawing a short piece of pipe to assist the next step. So a lot of times in certain auto routing functions, I think this is important. When you're having difficulty routing pipe, it may benefit to bring a line pipe run from your connection, whether it be the endpoint or both endpoints, to kind of help align or to give Revit basically two connections to understand where it's coming from. Sometimes we try to route this piping from an endpoint onto another fitting, and we get multiple errors or errors that we can't see. We can't do this. And sometimes, in some occasions, it may even change elevations. So, it is a little tricky. It takes a little bit of finesse to work with the slope piping to get it to work the way you want it to. but hopefully, as we go through and you get more seasoned with it, you'll understand some of the little intricacies that develop when modifying that tool. So then lastly, once you've drawn that little stub out, we're utilizing, we can be copied. I'm sorry. Once you trim this out, you can utilize the trim and extend to finish this extension right here. So essentially, our stub out is looking for the trim extend tool to help put those things together, essentially. And then lastly, I don't have it shown here, but obviously we can grab these entire connections and copy them within the floor. So in this particular, in the tool set, you did see that we have banks of sinks, 4 sinks in each adjacent room. You can take those piping layouts and copy and bring them over, and then of course using the align tool, align with your elevations and your certain locations within the drawing. So once again, that was a real quick recap. Hopefully many of you have already seen the connected learning. So like I said, we kind of blew through that really quick. If you haven't, once again, I can't reiterate, go back and take a look. There's also handouts available that has a little bit more in depth about what we just covered briefly just now. So what I've done is I've listed a few things to keep in mind as you're drawing. And we know there's many more tips and tricks out there. And the intention of today is to bring the community together, and please chime in if there's something you feel like we've missed or there's an important topic that we haven't covered. The idea is to share these thoughts and kind of enlighten the group today with something that you see that may have benefited you in the past. So as we look at some of these, some of these discussion points that we talked about, be sure to always verify your slope control points and your location. You want to be make sure you're routing in the correct direction. Always keep in mind that your slope pipe runs downhill if it's connected to that stack, or runs down if it's connected to that stack. I always throw this one in here when I say use caution when dragging pipe, whether it's in 3D view, plan, or section. We know if you've worked with Revit in any capacity that when you drag a piece of pipe or a piece of duct within a section view or a 3D view, or sorry, a 3D view or a section view, it can sometimes act a little, different, and it can be kind of frustrating because you don't get exactly what it is that you're dealing with. So just be careful. I tendency have to always, drag pipe in my plan view, pardon me, to kind of eliminate any errors that I may see occur or happen. So, just something we need to highlight there. Some of the things that I've seen from other customers when working with them is some of them would draw the slope main first, and starting by the most remote fixture, and then proceed out to the outlet. So, even starting your branches from the slope main as well. Once again, we used it before. Use the trim command to create elbows when your branch connects to vertical pipes helps, and not just vertical pipes, but just mating 2 pipes together. That trim and extend command always helps quite a bit. And then something that was just released in Revit 2018 a few years ago is the use of slope piping within fabrication parts. It wasn't covered in the connected learning, but this is relatively recent, within the last couple of years. And those of you who work with fabrication parts know that they're a little bit different. In terms of using ITMs rather than families within Revit, but you still have the ability to provide a sloping angle to those parts individually as you draw. And then I threw this lastly because there's always third-party applications available out there. You can search the web and take a look and find applications that are there. If you're doing an extensive amount of slope piping, this may be beneficial to take a look and see if it's something worth investing. Autodesk won't, we're not going to endorse any particular third-party app. So it's going to be best to just do your due diligence in terms of looking for what those might be, and then move forward from there. So that comes to the end. Like I said, it's just a brief recap. I didn't want to take too much of the time we have available in going over what was presented. What I kind of wanted to do was kind of open up the discussion and see if there's anything else that's out there that somebody might be interested in terms of slope piping.
Absolutely. I have quite a few people who have raised their hands, so we have a lot of brave people on the line. Yay! I'm going to start with Danny. Danny raised his hand in the attendee panel. So Danny, I'm going to try to unmute your line. And are you able to speak with us?
Yes, I was having technical difficulties listening. I was just having audio problems. I'm sorry, I couldn't figure it out. But
No
I figured
worries, no worries. It sounds like you're hearing better now. The great thing is the audio is coming clear on my side, so the recording should be nice and crisp and clear if you want to watch that afterwards to catch anything that you might have missed.
Okay, thanks.
That was an easy question. I like those kind of questions.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Danny. Do you have any other questions for John?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go to the next one.
Informative.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah, John is amazing. He is the expert I go to for this, so it's a great. All right. I'm going to open up Youssef's line. Youssef, are you able to speak with us? I have unmuted you on my line. If you have any additional mutes on your side, go ahead and click those and maybe we can hear you. Doesn't look like Youssef's mic is working. Okay, I'm going to jump to Anne then. And so Youssef, if you'll put your question in the Q&A panel, we'll come back to those in just a moment. So Anna Delgado, I have just unmuted your line. Do you have a question for John? Can you try unmuting from your side? I've unmuted you on my side. It sounds like her mic may not be connected either. Okay, we'll come back to her. How about Fred Hallman? I see your hand is raised.
There's no charge. I'll change whatever you want. No?
Hello, Fred, can you hear us?
Oh.
Fred, I saw that your hand was raised, so I unmuted your line. Did you have a question for John? No? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and mute it again then. I'm gonna go down to Michael Tan. I see there's a phone connected, so I'm gonna try unmuting and see if it works. Michael, do you have a question for John?
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me, first of all?
We can, yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. My question is, in our company, we have a setting in our phases where, if it's existing, we have the line type set to a certain view. But for plumbing, and as you know, there's like a line type for cold water, hot water, and what have you. So when we draw those in existing, it becomes, let's say if the setting was a some dash type line instead of those dash, space, dash, whatever symbols, it goes away. Is there a way to control that a lot easier for the existing site so that when we draw existing piping, the representation for, like I said, cold water appears like it is in our legend and things like that?
One of the things that you could possibly try, and I've utilized them in the past, and it's been a while, but the possibility of going through and utilizing filters. Have you tried the option, see if you can use a filter override to override the pipe settings that's in that template?
Oh, okay. So are you saying that the phases does not override the filters?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. I know the phases are going to control that, but I'm wondering it as an option. I don't know if the filters would probably help that situation.
Oh, okay.
It would be something that definitely worthwhile testing to take a look if the filters would be able to override that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael, for being willing to ask a question live.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. All right, I am going to go to Crystal next. So Crystal Ritchie, I'm unmuting your line. Are you able to ask your question?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Actually, I do have a question, but on the one that was just asked, I've had that same problem, and what I've ended up doing was in the phases, whenever it's existing or new, I just completely take all the phases out of there and remove it, and then use filters and have the line type set in my systems, my piping system. So if it's cold water, I have a dash and that's green or something or blue, and I have it set up in my systems, and then that will be overridden in my filters too. So phases do override your filters, but as long as you clear out your phases for new, then you won't have that override happen. Existing can't really, it just may, I haven't been able to do anything with existing, but I have been able to get it to come right in the new. And then my question was, do you have any recommendations for isometric plumbings drawings?
So I'm gonna answer this in two parts. So first of all, thank you for elaborating. This is what I was hoping to get, was just interaction from other users within the community. So Michael, obviously I wasn't able to give you a direct answer, but Crystal came in and saved the day, so to speak. So I appreciate that, Crystal. That's exactly what we're looking for, is just to bounce ideas and get inputs from everybody to help us move forward. So I wanted to commend you on that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I've been trying to find little workarounds, because like I'm trying to build the Revit department at the Revit MEP department at my work. So I'm kind of doing all this from scratch. So I've been building the template. So I've been in really fun situations with all this. So it's been fun.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, when it comes to slope piping, there's just so many, I don't want to say there's so many intricacies, but they can be temperamental. We know that these don't always act the way we want them to. Eventually we can get them to work, but it could take some manipulation and some thought and how we design and how we lay things out. So
Yeah.
good luck to you on that.
Yeah,
so
like I've gotten rid of slope piping in mine because it's like so many problems with the fittings. And like I end up corrupting a couple of models because I would have a slope pipe in there, and then it would just corrupt my model because of the fitting.
Was it these are recent, or were they earlier versions of Revit?
2019 Revit.
19.
Using the Revit out of the box fittings, they would end up corrupting the model, because Revit's trying to think and trying to like do the angles with the pipes fitting in there, but the pipe fitting doesn't want to move how the pipe is, so it's continuously trying to calculate it.
Right. With the model corruptions like that, one of the things that we do for our enterprise customers is we ask them to collect their Revit journals. And what happened is, you familiar with Revit journals?
No.
Okay, so when a Revit session is opened, a journal is created to basically list out what you're doing in Revit. So as you're working through Revit, a journal is created behind the scenes that has basically every command. So it doesn't have anything personal as far as like project information in terms of list, where what you're working on, so forth like that. But it does have file names and so forth. But what it does is it tells us who's working on that file, what command you're utilizing. And then what it does is, in certain sessions of corruptions, the instance of corruptions, it will list out if there's certain corrupted families within a model. So what we can do is, if we just make sure, Michelle, we get her email or contact information, I can make sure that I get you where to locate those journal files. And what it'll do is, as you look to that journal file, it is a text file, and it can be a little bit clunky, and it's almost like being a developer or a programmer. But you can do a search within that document to look for corrupted or corruptions, and it kind of tells you what files may be listed out as corrupted. So
that would be perfect.
It could tell you which fittings you are having issues with as well. So
that'd be perfect.
Can I do a plug here?
Sure.
So I presented a class just on that at AU 2017, and I'll post a link to that as well. And basically it's called Dr. Revit. Code Blue Dr. Revit, help resuscitate corrupt Revit models. So it kind of goes into talk about slog files and journal files and what to look for. And there is a search routine in there which will highlight and colorize all those errors and everything. So I'll put a session link in the chat window for.
Awesome. That's great. That's
Perfect.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Yeah. The other thing that I didn't mention, and it kind of alludes to what the gentleman was just saying, is that you can download a I think it's not C++. I'm trying to remember a viewer. I'm trying to remember the model. I can't remember right off the top of my head.
Notepad++.
Yes, there you go.
It has all instructions in there, the handout.
Exactly. And you can download that, and then what allows you to, like you said, allows you to bring in that text file, and you can start colorizing and looking for certain things that may help you with the model. So it's really diagnostic, but as you start getting more familiar with Revit, it really helps you to understand what could be possibly happening with that model. If you're getting corruptions or if certain things happen within a model that would relatively crash. Now, it's not all knowing. It's not going to give you an answer every time, but it does try to provide some clues in certain instances where you do have issues.
Okay.
So that was your first part of your question. So it's like that movie, what is it, Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, where he's being tested and he's got one question that consists of 256 parts. This will be my part. This will be my part too. It's not your fault now. So the second part was ISOs, right? Isometrics and single lines. We were talking about that. Unfortunately, Revit, we all know, we've been working with Revit. This has not always been a strong suit in Revit. There is no way really to do an interactive type isometric or one-line diagram within Revit. Now you can draw single line and place them, as a drafting view within a sheet. Most people end up, if they really need the single line diagrams, that's usually what they end up doing, or those are created in AutoCAD and then brought over, so there's in a drafting view instance. But unfortunately, there really isn't one, that you can, interactive. So something, we're used to how Revit acts, where you manipulate one part, it manipulates all the views. It just isn't there yet. Now there is some connections with P&ID Modeler with Plant, but it works a little bit differently, because with P&ID Modeler, you're getting a P&ID from a Plant 3D environment and then bringing it into Revit, and then kind of just matching what the P&ID is originally designed for, and then matching it into a real-time Revit model. So a little bit different of a workflow, but it doesn't work, the way we would like it to see, where you'd have a plant, you want to be able to bring in an isometric and update it, and realistically, I'd want to be able to modify that P&ID, and then everything modifies within my Revit model. That's just not available, unfortunately.
So far, like what I've been doing is doing like a 3D view and locking it and having it as the hidden line. So like that works and kind of gets it across, and then I end up like taking the plumbing fixtures and making them where they're transparent, so you can see stuff behind it and in front of it, and kind of really playing with that.
Exactly, and I've seen some people not just have the fixtures, but replace them with tags. So in order to do that in the 3D model, you would have to lock it so it doesn't move, obviously, and then because it won't let you do it if it's not locked. But anyway, yeah, go in there, and I've seen people do where they make relatively decent ISOs from it, but once again, it's based off of trying to get that equipment lined up correctly, and some people have to tweak that 3D view just a little bit on their rotation to make it look correct. But I have seen that done, and yeah, that is one of the solutions to trying to get it done.
I think like the biggest problem is like you have the MEP like hidden line. Like if only that MEP hidden line could be used for the isomet for the 3D view. Like that is like, if it were to work like that, then we could just change it to like coarse view, and you would have the isometric right then and there.
Correct.
But like that's what I was wondering, like, is that something like Autodesk has looked into or anything?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because this is something that we've got a good group on board, and I'm not sure how well versed everybody is with Autodesk, but we do have project forums. So Revit has a forum, They also have ideas station. So the ideas station is available for users to go in there and place their ideas. So you basically would just log into ideas, and it's usually based per product. Now, each product team kind of looks and reviews these ideas, and what they do is if there's enough momentum and generation of requests for a particular enhancement or a particular workflow that's needed, they will consider those and see if they are in the roadmap for that particular product. So I definitely, and I reach out to everybody for this, make sure that, you look at those idea forums and place any of those enhancement requests that you may have. Some people think that just because, your idea may be obscure, you think it might be obscure, but in real life, there's probably a large community that's ran through these already, has dealt with these issues in the past, and all you're doing is generating momentum for the product team to look at.
So, hey, Michelle, can we go to Tim? I don't know how to say the last name, Kaifi, next. Yeah, I posted all the links that John is talking about in the chat window. So just take a look at those and copy those down.
Yes, I was actually going to go to Tim next. Just to let everyone know, that's we've got our expert elites helping us, and so we have Naman Marsala. Pronounce your last name for me, Naman.
Mysorwala.
Mysorwala. Thank you. I am so sorry. But we have him working in the background, helping us capture these questions and answer some of them. And so there he is. Nice to see you online. He's been wonderful to help with us, though. We do have quite a few questions, so I'm going to limit the questions a little bit more. So yeah, let's go ahead, and I'm going to open up Tim's line. And Tim asked a question in the Q&A panel. When I click on my
question than that one.
Oh, you have a different one now. Okay, well, let's jump to that then.
Okay, so we're doing fabrication parts with slope piping, sanitary, everything else like that. Question is when you're routing along, you're going in a slope, and when you turn to a vertical, it still maintains that slope in the vertical. How do you get it to not have a slope in the vertical?
Have you tried, so it's meeting a riser already, or are you adding the riser as you're developing your run?
Yes.
But yeah, so which one is it? So are you drawing the horizontal and then going vertical, or do you already have a riser developed and then meeting to it?
No, I'm drawing the horizontal then going vertical.
Okay. Have you tried bringing in just a horizontal pipe first with no slope, aligning that, and then bringing in the horizontal to match?
So bringing in a vertical?
So yeah, so
no
for instance, a lot of times we would be, let's just say we're working in a mechanical plant, you would have your risers already dictated somewhere, correct? Whether they're, some part of the building, you'd have risers already established. Have those established risers in a location on your floor plan, and then bring that horizontal into that vertical pipe. I'm interested to see if that changes the horizontal into a slope.
Yeah, so that's a good point, but the thing is it doesn't necessarily work that way. So if you're starting at your farthest most remote fixture, you would start there like at a floor drain and work all the way back out. So if you go into a section, you draw a vertical pipe coming out of your floor drain, hit your trap, and you start routing, you're going to drop in elevation at some point. And so that's kind of, maybe it's my workflow that's flawed, and that's okay.
Well, and I'm just wondering if you'd be able to just draw a section view and align that angle to whatever your slope elevation would be. So just, like I said, there's a lot of ways, that's what's, like I said, when we talked about slope piping, there's just so many ways to try to manipulate the piping to get it to work where you're at. I'm just thinking if we have the vertical pipe already established, and I understand what you're saying, as soon as you try to connect, obviously it's going to drop your elevation. I'm wondering if you just make that angle come out of the vertical and then try to align that pipe with your elevation. I'm just throwing these out. I don't have to test. I'm just throwing these out, or if somebody else has a better.
Yep, all ears. Appreciate it.
Okay. And Tim, did you find the answer to the question you asked in the Q&A panel then?
No, but that's
Okay.
that's
Let's
a mute.
quickly ask that. Let's quickly ask that. So the question he brought up in the Q&A panel was, when I click on the slope piping, I'm not seeing the arrow that you indicated. Is there a setting that turns that on and off?
Which arrow are we talking about? Are we
So
talking
you
about?
had like a big fat arrow that showed the slope?
Oh, that was it highlighted in red?
No. You had a screenshot that you said when you picked the slope, it showed the slope with an arrow. I just have
Oh,
like
yes,
a less than symbol, if you will.
Your slope control, is that what you're thinking of?
Yes.
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick.
Actually, I'm going to have to stop sharing. I had up there the list of upcoming meetups so that everyone knew when the next one was for yours.
Actually, that's okay, Michelle. We can just talk about it here. So if you
Okay.
go in, if you select your pipe, if you select
Yes.
your run, and you
Yes.
go into modify here. If you select your pipe and you go into your slope under modified pipe,
Mm-hmm.
and once you select that, it brings in your slope editor. Once you click your slope control point, it'll establish that arrow. Now, if you don't see that arrow, it
Oh, I
could
see.
be that, do you see it now?
Yeah.
So if you don't see that, whenever you do this and you don't see that, it could be that your pipe is already connected to a stub. And in that case, it just won't, it already establishes that control.
Yep.
So you
Yeah,
won't.
that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
If you were to
Yep.
disconnect that pipe and then try it, you'd see that arrow show up.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. For spooling purposes, we got to make sure everything's connected up.
Right. Right.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
You bet. All right. Thanks, Tim. How are we looking on time? We've got about 15 more minutes. So I'm going to jump to, let's see, all my questions got mixed up. Let's jump to some of the online questions. Pamela is saying, I have also had success in correcting slope on vertical pipes with drawing a detail line from the start of the vertical pipe and then aligning the pipe with the line. You may need to do this from another section positioned at 90 degrees to the original section. So it sounds like she's giving you some great advice there. Thank you, Pamela.
And perfect example of utilizing these section views as you're modifying these, for young designers or designers that are just getting out and starting out and utilizing this. I can't stress enough to pull out those section views and those elevations to really see what's happening with your connections.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump to Jonathan Teedy. He has a couple of questions, so I'm going to open up your line, Jonathan. Are you able to speak with us? Do you have a microphone, Jonathan? And maybe I pronounced your last name wrong. T-I-E-D-E? Could be Tide or Teedy, I'm not sure. Okay, sounds like he might not have a microphone. I'll go ahead and ask his questions live for him then. One of the questions, if I ever have to draw a vertical from a sloped line, I just redraw it from an elevation above this, the sloped pipe and draw it down. Revit will connect it. So that sounds like a little bit of advice as well. Thank you, Jonathan. And Jonathan also said in another comment, draw vertical and then draw horizontal. So a couple pieces of really great advice there. Thank you, Jonathan. And I see another one from Jonathan. We use the 3D version for our ISOs, fine, hidden, and then we have actual fixtures placed and labeled with tags. There for once, I'm not sure I'm making sense of this. There for once have these placed and change the fixture tag. Our tags read the type mark, and everywhere, including the ISOs, it changes the tags. Oh, so there you go. That was coming back to, I believe it was Crystal's questions or comment.
Crystal's question, yeah.
Excellent. Some great advice. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing that great advice. I'm going to make sure I get that shared out with everyone. Okay. And let's go to Glenn Safford. I'm going to try opening your line. Glenn, can you speak?
Yeah, mine was just back from the question about the existing versus new. I was just making a statement on ways to probably fix it, and I said it in my in the chat window, where you can, depending on how your existing phase is set up and what you want to see, you can have all your overrides on the existing phase back to default, no override, and just do halftone. And in this state, whatever you have set in your pipe systems, whatever type and color, would be maintained between new and existing. But then again, you would have to see how this affects link models, the rest of your models, like if you have an architectural model, how is that going to be showing up on your, like, you know, walls and stuff. Because for me, we set our existing phase to do a grayscale, and then the line weight to be at like 2, so it looks thinner, so it's like less prominent, so you're able to overlook it between new and existing work. So that's one solution that you can play around with.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. I'm going to go to another Glenn. Glenn Jones, are you able to speak?
Hello.
Hi. I saw your hand raised. Did you have a question or comment for John?
Well, my question is P-traps at drain bodies, specifically floor drains, floor sinks, and then trying to connect them to a sloped pipe. This is a super complicated fiasco on how to get that to work properly, because I'm actually having to draw flat pipe, replace the elbow that's drawn automatically, and then put in a new elbow, change that to a P-trap, and then try to figure out how to get a slope pipe to connect to the end of it. And 9 times out of 10, it turns the P-trap 180 degrees.
Have you tried to disconnect is it just a P-trap with that pipe, or is it connected to an actual fixture or the drain? Is it connected to the drain on the floor, I guess?
Yes.
Have you tried disconnecting the drain on the vertical? So try building the P-trap section out without it connected to the drain itself.
Okay.
And then once you get that set up, then make the connection to the drain. I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it to where, you know, and like I said, a lot of these are going to be one-offs where, you know, there's really weird scenarios or conditions I've seen. And I've seen, and you know, I hear it in your voice, and you're like every other Revit user out there. I think we're all in the same boat. But I've noticed that when I'm having really big difficulties making connections, I usually end up going back and disconnecting my pipe to either my equipment or my fixtures to see if I can get that alignment correct, and then going back to connect. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't always work depending on what kind of environment you're in, but I've been able to get some successes in that issue.
Okay, I'll try that. I just, you know.
And keep in mind, if there's somebody available that's you know, incorporated this somewhere else, and that's, you know, definitely chime up.
Yeah, we did actually have some comments on that. Gabe had said the P-trap part type is set to multi-port. Change that to elbow and see if it helps as well.
Okay.
Okay. And Jason asked a question regarding this. What is the part category of the P-trap?
It's a pipe fitting. I'm still kind of a new Revit user, so.
And that's okay. That's why we're here, because, you know, having this wider community, you don't have to know everything. You can just know where to go get the answers, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. So, and Nicholas is saying, my experience has been, once you get the P-trap modeled, draw out, sorry, it moved on me. Draw out of the P-trap with a 1-inch piece of flat, no slope pipe, exit the pipe command, then draw out a 1-inch piece of flat pipe with sloped pipe. That's an interesting workflow. Thank you, Nicholas.
And something not unusual with dealing with slope pipes.
Yeah, what I've done in the past is just draw a flat pipe over to the wall where I'm going to be venting. Then I go down with an sanitary T elbow, and it's roughly where I need the pipe slope anyway. So
Great.
I was hoping just for true slope pipe, but anyway, thank you all.
So give those suggestions a try, and let us know somehow. Let's continue the conversation in the forums so that you can continue to share that information with each other. I think it's a great way to increase everyone's knowledge and the projects that you're working on, the quality of.
And keep in mind, Jason, one of the things too, just be careful with is sometimes we get busy, we overlook, but within that modified place pipe, where we're adding the slope and the verticals and stuff like that, we do have inherent size, inherent elevation, and then automatically connect. So sometimes we can have those selected as we're going, and sometimes that can throw things off as we're modeling. So just always be just always make it a habit to flash up there to make sure in that rhythm to say, do I want to automatically connect this, or am I inheriting elevation and stuff? So just a little workflow to think about. It may not be solving your issue, but it's a good work practice to say, okay, do I really want to do this?
Right. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Glenn, for asking the question live.
Thank you.
Okay, we probably have one more option for one more question, or time for one more question. So I'm going to open up Andrew's line. Andrew, what is your question? Andrew Denso? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay, what's your question?
So we're talking about when you're going to connect your pipe and to use reference planes to kind of determine the angle at which you're coming into the pipe or the fit-in that you're connecting to. So instead of using that reference plane, is it also okay to use detail, like just draw a quick detail line from your connecting point to your other pipe, or is it just good practice to just use the reference plane?
I like using reference planes, but you can draw a detail line. I've used both. So there was an instance where I wasn't doing piping. I was utilizing a pneumatic tube, and the way that families were drawn out, the detailed lines weren't working for me. So I ended up, reference planes weren't working for me, so I ended up having to use detail lines. Big thing is just make sure your angles are correct when you're drawing those out. Whether you have to, basically just do a quick dimensioning on your angles to make sure you got the correct angle. But I haven't ran across any issues using either or. I've used both in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Okay, we have 2 more minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and open up one more line. How about Kevin Helms? Are you able to speak with us?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, what's your question?
Excellent. Yeah, back in the CAD days, we used a T-type pattern to indicate the direction of slope. And we've found in our office that oftentimes we don't actually slope the pipe unless we actually absolutely have to, if the client is asking for it, if it's a coordination model. But we'd like to indicate the slope, but right now Revit only allows us to do dashes, dots, or spaces for line patterns. And we'd love to indicate the slope without having to create some sort of detail line or component and put over the pipe. We haven't really found a great way to do it. Any suggestions from you guys or the group to try to successfully accomplish that?
Any suggestions there, John?
That's a good one. I'd have to play with that to take. Can we capture that information, Michelle? but I'd like to take a look at that and see if there's something else we can do there. But I don't have
Yeah,
anything
you're
off the top
familiar
right
with
now.
you're familiar with that T-type pattern that I think a lot of companies have used that to kind of indicate the direction of flow. I've seen it used quite frequently, but yeah, we haven't been able to successfully accomplish that on our end.
Okay, and Daniel is saying that would be great for water or gas piping as well. So it's definitely something we can explore. And what I'll do is I'll take note of all of this and all of the questions that we didn't get to. I'm going to pass those over to John and the team and see if we can find answers or come up with some great workflows to help you out. If we can't, that might be something we send to the product team to see if we can develop and fix or add to the product. So there's lots of options here, but we definitely want to keep this conversation going. So again, go out to the forums. Let's keep the conversation going there. The next time that we actually talk about mechanical engineering is going to be in September, on September 24th. And so, keep those ideas flowing, keep the conversation going, and we'll see you again on the 24th unless you plan to come to one of the other meetups. So John and Naman, thank you so much for your time today. I know it takes a lot to prep all of this. So John, thanks for the great presentation, and Naman for helping us with those Q&As and providing your own little tidbits of information. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Take care.